Deeply savoury, melt in your mouth beef stew is one of those universal loves. This is my slow cooker version of Filipino beef and peanut stew. So this is actually a follower request. We had a request to make Kare beef stew, and I have to say, it's not something I had made at home before, so I was really excited to give this a try, and even more excited because it's got like, you know, it's almost like this slightly kind of peanutty satay kind of vibe to it with the stew and the peanuts, and honestly, when I tried it out, I was like, yes, this is my kind of beef stew. Really good, really good. Okay, so even if you haven't heard of it before, please do give it a try. Let's get into looking at our beef though. So this is typically made with oxtail. It's an oxtail beef stew, but the oxtail at my market this morning wasn't just looking that great. It wasn't like really meaty and yum. So I'm going with an ossobuco cut today, which is from the shank rather than the tail, but it will do the same sort of job with that connective tissue. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Now, even though I'm going to be putting this in my slow cooker, I want to start it off in the pan so I get some really nice color on my beef. A little more salt, a little more pepper. And the base of any really good stew, whether you're talking about like a French beef bourguignon or you're talking about this particular Filipino beef stew, is that you want to really layer the flavors. So you start off getting a really lovely beefy flavor with this caramelization. Have a look at this color. It's exactly what we want. And then from here, we can start to go in with our aromatics and then finally our liquids. So that's kind of the way I think about it when I'm doing a stew. This color is looking really great. What I might do is grab my slow cooker and my beef pieces can go straight in there. Now I've got some oil and fat left in here in the pan, and the really interesting thing with this dish is using annatto seeds, that's these guys here, these red seeds, to flavor and color that oil. So you'll see what I'm talking about here. Pop the seeds in, and then immediately you'll see you start to get this really lovely ruby red color here. Now I know annatto seeds aren't widely available everywhere. Do try and search them out online or from an Asian or Filipino grocery store. But if not, you could just add a little bit of sweet paprika here to give you a little bit of that red color. It does have a little bit of like a florally musty kind of fragrance to it, but mainly it's about that beautiful red color. Once the seeds have done their job though, you want to take them out. So leave the oil behind and just take out the seeds. To that oil, I'm going to add some onion. Ah, look at that color, it's just so vibrant and amazing. I love that. Some garlic. And a little bit of salt here. Salt always helps when you are sauteing onions. Now the other clever thing that I want to do here is deglaze my pan with just a little bit of the beef stock I'm going to be using for this recipe. This will lift off any of that flavor that's stuck to the bottom of the pan. There we go. And then into my slow cooker pot. My next ingredient here is really a little bit more about texture than anything. So I'm taking this sticky rice. This is a glutinous rice or a sticky rice, and it's raw. I'm going to put it into my frying pan and then toast it up. And we're going to make a ground roasted rice, and it does give you a little bit of like a toasty, peanutty flavor, which is really great. And it also thickens up your stew sauce. So see how everything is really lovely, deeply dark and golden. You'll kind of get a bit of like a popcorn kind of smell when it's ready. Now I'll put that in here and then just grind that to a really fine powder. Add that to my other ingredients, along with some peanuts and some eggplant, some peanut butter, and then the rest of my beef stock. So at this point, I just like to give everything a little bit of a mix, My lid goes on. Now the cooking time really depends on your slow cooker. I've got a high and low setting, so if I turn this to high, this is going to cook in about 3 hours. If you're doing it on a low setting, that's going to take 6 to 8 hours. Some time later. Ooh, boo, boo. So now I think we're looking pretty good. Let's have a look in here. Ah, yes. I love when something else does all the hard work for you. I really do like slow cooking because you don't have to sit there and watch it on the stovetop and be stirring it. You just kind of set it and forget it, which is great. And then here's the thing, I really like to do this kind of seasoning thing at the end after all those ingredients have really softened up and really developed their flavors. So here at the end, I'm going to add in some vinegar, fish sauce, brown sugar. Now I do want to add some extra bits and pieces here. I'm going in with some snake beans. You could use green beans if you can't get a hold of snake beans, but it is a far more classic addition for this Filipino dish. They're kind of like, if you haven't seen a snake bean before, they're like long, much longer than a green bean. I find that they have a little bit more of a kind of like, it's almost a bit more of a chalky texture and a slightly more medicinal kind of flavor than a regular sort of more sweeter green bean, if you like. But either would be fine. I'm gonna pop those in and then pop the lid back on another 20 minutes just to let those extra seasonings make friends in there. So now I think we should be good. Let's have a look. Very nice. I mean, the thing that I love about this is that this beef should be uber tender. If you have a look in here, just break that open. Oh, so good. That makes me happy. So here we go. Spoon out some of that really lovely, like peanutty, shiny kind of sauce along with your beef. And see how that eggplant's really kind of like broken down and also like helped to thicken up that sauce as well. Oh, so good. So the classic way to serve this is with some steamed rice and yeah, just dig in there. Now I think with any good beef stew, you should be able to pass what I call the spoon test. So spoon goes in and that beef should just melt away. Look at that, so soft and tender. Wow, I mean, so much great flavor there. It's such a comforting kind of dish. I really, you know, I can see now why so many people have been requesting this dish because it must carry so much like family nostalgia. I feel like it's one of those kind of family dishes that you would have eaten growing up and just always craved as you got older. Oh, I love that. Thanks guys for recommending this one to me. Please do let me know about any other recipes you would love to see me feature on my channel. I love hearing from you guys. And also tell me if you've got a different version of this dish as well. I love to hear all the different versions, ideas, suggestions, comments. So come at me, let me know. All right, I can eat more of this curry. Not only is this beef casserole super rich and comforting with fork tender beef, but there's also a whole bunch of ingredients here which are working hard to make you feel good. This is my immune boosting slow braised beef. Whenever I'm trying to be a little bit more virtuous, I'm always thinking about the ingredients that I generally keep on hand that work really hard to help with my immunity or with giving me extra vitamins. And so I came up with this slow braised beef recipe because we're going to be including a whole bunch of ingredients that help to make you feel good. All right, we're going to start off first of all with some eggplant. So I am just using some of these small eggplant because that's what I happen to have in my fridge, but you could use one larger one if you want to. And the other thing I like to do also is try to like up the vegetable intake in whatever dish I might be doing. So typically with a braised beef, you might not include things like eggplant or sweet potato, but when we're trying to do things a bit nicer for our bodies, I like to include a little bit more of those ingredients. So I am just going to heat up some oil. I'm using some olive oil and add your eggplant in. Now you just want to flip these guys around in the hot oil until they get a nice little sear on them. So the trick here with the eggplant is that I wanted to include eggplant, right? But I didn't want to throw the eggplant in with the beef because it's going to slow braise in the oven and then the eggplant would just basically disintegrate. So what I'm doing is searing it off and then I'm going to keep it to the side and add it a little bit towards the end of the cooking. You'll see how it works. It'll all make sense in the end. So now I've got some really great colour on my eggplant and I'm just going to take that out, pop that to a plate. And next I've got my beef. So I'm using an oyster blade here. You can use chuck steak, gravy beef. I do like to have it in sort of like medium-sized chunks, not too small. And I'm going to just season that with a little bit of salt. Now, if salt or sodium is not your jam, like obviously you can leave it out. I'm all about adding things in. So I add things into my cooking to make me feel a bit better. But if you would rather leave the salt out, that's totally up to you. But what I do want you to do is give your beef a nice searing kind of color in your pan, because that browning that happens, that is flavor, and that's going to help out by starting to layer our beautiful casserole here with some good beefiness. So just let that beef sit there and get some color. Now we know that beef is a really good source of iron, but did you know it's also a valuable source of ink? Not ink. But did you know it's a really valuable source of zinc, which is a mineral that's great for immune function. Now I need to add some shallots in here. Just want to cut them in half. I like to keep them quite chunky so they maintain a little bit of their integrity as they slow cook. Now once that beef is looking really lovely and seared, so a nice colour all over each piece, now you can go in with your shallots. And again, just give them some time to get some colour on them and develop some flavour as well. So you can see after a few minutes, I have beautifully coloured beef. I have some nice golden colour there on my shallots. So let's go in with the rest of our stuff. I've got some celery here, some ginger, which I just need to slice. Now I use ginger a lot in my Asian cooking, and I feel like it's one of those things that automatically kind of makes me feel better, particularly when I'm hungover, because the ginger does naturally help with nausea, which is why it is helpful when you are feeling a little under the weather after last night. But it's also anti-inflammatory as well, so a really good powerhouse little ingredient there. I've also got some garlic, another common ingredient that you use, but also is very good for your immune health. It has natural antiviral and antibacterial properties. Now for some spices. So I'm going in with some star anise and a cinnamon stick. So the cinnamon and the star anise are going to give us a little bit of that like Chinese five spice kind of vibe, which I think adds to like that comforting factor you get with this slow braised beef at the end. Now our other like little powerhouse ingredient here is some tomato passata. So cooked tomatoes actually contain a higher level of lycopene. Lycopene sounds right. You know when you read stuff a lot, you read a lot of things and then you're like, that's what it sounds like in my brain, but then the rest of the world's like, that's not how you say it. And then you're like, oh. Lycopene is an antioxidant, which helps fight the like free radicals going on in your body, and also really good for immunity. So there you go.
10 points.
Yes, thanks Dax. Woo. Okay, beef stock. You could easily use water as well if you like. That would also cut down on the sodium. And now I go in with my soy sauce. And then I'm using some Chinese black vinegar here. So, you know, I don't know, if I was being a little less virtuous today, I might add some red wine here. But I'm going with the Chinese black vinegar instead because you get kind of like a little bit more of that floral detail without adding the alcohol. And a little bit of tang as well, so it's good. Okay, and some brown sugar. Just let that come back up to a simmer and cover your dish, and that goes into the oven, 170 Celsius for an hour. Then we're going to come back and add some more things. So in the meantime, while that's happening, I am going to prepare my sweet potato. So the cool thing about sweet potato and using it in this beef dish is that sweet potato is a really good source of vitamin C, and vitamin C happens to help you absorb iron, which is in your beef. So it's all working together. So just some nice little cute bite-sized pieces here. Cut to an hour later. So now is the point when your whole kitchen will be smelling really delicious. You'll be able to smell like the star anise and the beefiness and the cinnamon. So let's get our beef out. Oh, that looks so good already. Look at it, it's like bubbling and thick and lush. Now, what we need to do is put in our sweet potato and our eggplant. And then lid on and pop that into the oven for another 45 minutes. All right, so I've been very patient. It's now time to eat. Ooh, that looks good, to eat my slow-braised beef. That just looks so lush. I'm loving it. What I'm gonna do is, I've got a few final little bits and pieces for the end here. So I'm gonna serve this out first into a dish. And then a little sprinkling of coriander and spring onion, and a little sprinkling of green chili, because would it be one of my dishes if it didn't have some chili? Also, chili is good for you. My Asian ancestors told me so. All right, I'm gonna get in here and try this. It's so good. Wow, that beef is so tender. And just those two spices, the star anise and the cinnamon, have added so much beautiful, like warm, spicing kind of flavors to this. Like it's kind of like a slow-braised Chinese dish. Oh, it's lovely. It couldn't be any easier to make this rich, spicy, Moorish broth. I have all the cheats for this one, my friends. This is my slow cooker chicken laksa noodle soup. All right guys, insanely rich, spicy broth coming up, but like with almost no effort. Let's get straight on to doing that. First of all, I'm gonna just put some oil into my pan here. And even though we're doing a slow cooker recipe here, I still like to always kind of, do whatever I can to develop some flavors before I get everything into the slow cooker pot, because you don't get the same searing and the same heat that you would from a pan. So anything that needs, that kind of attention always gets it, even though I'm using the slow cooker. So in this case, it's curry paste that needs the attention here. Curry paste really always benefits from a little bit of love in some hot oil. All the aromatics and flavors then get released. And you don't want that pan too hot, because red curry paste and oil means splatter. So yes, I am using a Thai red curry paste for this one. You can use Laksa paste if you are somewhere where that's readily available. I often use Thai red curry paste for this because I often have Thai red curry paste in my pantry because I'm half Thai. So I just want to give this a little bit of time here, just a little bit of a sizzle. Now, to give my Thai red curry paste that kind of curry laksa kind of flavor, I'm going to add some curry powder here. Now to that, I'm going to add a little bit of chicken stock. And again, because I'm making a little cheats version today, that is a store-bought chicken stock. No need to be a hero every night of the week. And you just want to let that bubble away for a couple of minutes here. So now we have this gorgeous spice paste, and I'm going to pop that into my slow cooker bowl. So if you didn't want to use a slow cooker here, you could pop this into a regular, large pot, and you could have it simmering on the stovetop for, about 90 minutes or so would be good. I guess the benefit of using the slow cooker is that you don't have to come back and check it. You can just let it sit around all day while you're at work. So, but choose your own adventure there, guys. I'm going to add in the rest of my chicken stock here. Let's give that a mix. And now here's my chicken. And now this is going to go into my slow cooker, 6 hours on low. Okay, so it's been a very busy day here in my studio. We're back here in the afternoon, and check this out. Okay, our chicken is looking quite delightful. I did kind of turn it around a couple of times just so I got a really lovely even color all over the chicken, but you don't need to do that. It's more, a color thing. So this is looking really good. I'm gonna take my chicken out and just pop our little friend here into a bowl. Now just shred that chicken, it'll be really nice and soft. Now all of this soup that's going on in here, this stuff is like liquid gold. It's smelling amazing. It does need a few little extra bits and pieces here. So I'm just gonna pour this out into a pot. Now I also wanna add some extra oomph here. So I'm gonna go in with some fish sauce and just a little dash of sugar. So now we need some coconut cream. Just mix that through, and already that beautiful color, you know, that creaminess, and then the beautiful red spiced oil on top is looking so good. What I do want to do though is heat this up a little just to get that coconut milk and all those flavors making friends in there. So just a couple of minutes. So while our broth is doing its thing, let's get all of our other little bits and pieces going. So I want some noodles here. I've got some really lovely Chinese fresh noodles here, but any kind of noodle adventure you want is totally cool. Just some boiling water. Okay, noodles look good. Just grab those out. And so one other little thing I'm doing here, it's totally an optional, but I've always got frozen dumplings in my freezer. So I thought, why not just add them in? Because, you know, dumplings make everything better. Now we want to add in some of our shredded chicken. Now just a few other little extras here. I've got some coriander, some chili, and an egg. So let's get some of that amazing broth. Look at that color. That is just like joy in a pot. Now I want some bean shoots here, my egg. Building a laksa bowl is all about like the extra bits, I reckon. Some coriander and chili. So there you go, friends. That's my very cheat kind of version of laksa noodle soup. Let's get in here and try it though, because I can't wait to taste that broth. Ah, wow, that is like a huge explosion of flavor. It's really spicy, which is just the way I like it. That is so good. It's just like the complexity of the flavor is incredible. I mean, you're getting this kind of like lovely curry kind of flavor, but then you've got the creamy coconut. It is so good and ridiculously easy. So good. Love it. Love, love, love. I just need to go away now, quietly. Leave me with my bowl. Even though that pork's been cooked a really short amount of time, relatively, because usually you like slow cook pork belly, but that is super tender. That is a really good weeknight dinner. Loving that. So our little tray bag story here gets started by browning off our pork rashers. So what are pork rashers? Well, you might find them in your supermarket. They're very common here in Australia, and they look like this, and they're just basically, it's pork belly that's already been sliced. So you're not after bacon rashers, you're after pork belly slices. You can always slice it yourself. Now, I just want to add a little bit of oil into this pan here. So this is a roasting or baking dish. So this can go into the oven. It also can take a bit of heat on the stovetop. So you kind of need something like that. And you want it nice and hot. Pour in some oil. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of salt here to season my little porky pieces. And now we go in for the sizzle. Now the idea with a tray bake, or with a good tray bake, let's put it that way, is that you really need to like build up the flavor. So I'm going for some color here on this pork, and that color means flavor. I want to make sure I'm seasoning really well as well. So I know I put salt on the first side, a bit more salt on the second side. Okay, so while that pork is doing its thing, we've got lots of time to make our sticky glaze. Now, we're gonna start off with a little bit of hoisin first, and then a little splash of some Chinese Shaoxing wine. Now, you can use apple juice or orange juice here if you would like to keep your glaze alcohol-free. That's totally cool as well. And some soy sauce, And to really ramp up the Chinese 5-spice kind of character that you get with a hoisin, I'm going to add in some extra Chinese 5-spice. And actually, if you want to make this at home yourself from scratch, I've got a video on how to do that as well. So this glaze is going to give us like that Chinese barbecue pork kind of flavor a little bit later on, but I can hear that the pork over here is doing some talking. So let's go back here and have a look. This pork now has some really lovely, just starting to get that kind of golden color through there. And that is going to start that flavor process for us. Okay, so I want another 5 minutes on that second side as well, just to make sure that both sides are really lovely and golden. Now I'm going to get these guys out onto a plate and they can just rest up until we need them again a little bit later on. Now turn that heat off on the pan, but don't lose all of that yumminess in the bottom there. All of that brown stuff is all good stuff that we're going to use later on. First of all though, I want to get my apples done, and I love this kind of combination. I mean, it's a bit, it's not your average pork and apples, I guess, because you've got that Chinese barbecue pork flavor going on. But I do think pork and apples, well, they're besties. They like each other. And I just want some nice big chunks here. And now some cabbage. So I'm using Napa cabbage, also known as Chinese cabbage or wombok. But you could use any kind of cabbage that you like. Purple cabbage would be great here, actually. That would be lovely. The color would be great. Anyway, that's not what I have today. But I just want some nice slices here of the cabbage. All right, so let's come back to our lovely dirty pan here. Lovely dirty. Well, it is, because that lovely dirty is going to give us the flavor. I've got quite a bit of oil and fat in there, so I'm not going to go in with any more. I'm just going to go straight in with some chopped garlic and some grated ginger. I'm just going to grate that straight in there. The skin is really fine on this one. It's quite a young ginger, so I'm not even going to bother peeling it. Make sure you're scraping up lots of those bits on the bottom there. So now in with your apple and the cabbage. I love how this is such a cool riff on like classic flavors, cabbage, apple, and it all gets done in one tray. So very convenient also. So just toss that around a little bit in there. But what I really want to do is make sure that I'm sort of picking up all of that lovely brown flavor from the bottom of the pan. So to do that, I want to add in some liquid. I'm going to go in with some more Shaoxing Chinese cooking wine and some chicken stock as well. And now, because we've added that liquid, all of that lovely stuff at the bottom there is coming straight off the pan, and that is going to form a really lovely flavored sauce. Now let's come back to our pork. So just lay those pieces in there. Now just give each of those pieces a lovely brush with some of our hoisin glaze. That's going to get things like nice and sweet and sticky. All right, so this goes into the oven now for 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back, flip that pork over and do a little bit more glazing. Okay, so these are not ready yet. They're not ready for their Instagram picture just yet. I'm going to flip these guys over, and then we want another brush here. Now back into the oven another 15 minutes until we've got a lovely color on the other side. So while the pork's doing its thing, let's do some final little greenery over here. So I've got some spring onion here, but you could use some Thai basil, some coriander would be nice. Just like a little final like pop of freshness just at the end. So now we just want to wait for our pork. Okay, so pork is currently smelling amazing right now. Let's have a look. So just have a look at that lovely like glazed pork, and the apple's nice and softened in there, and I know that there's a really good sauce hanging out at the bottom of that tray as well. So what I wanted to here is make myself a nice little kind of rice bowl situation. So we're gonna go in with some pork. Now I want some apple as well, some of that cabbage. Now you wanna get in here and scoop up some of that sauce and just drizzle that all over your pork. And just some final little bits of love here. We want some green spring onion. And of course, because I'm me, there's a little pop of chili here as well. So there you go, friends, my barbecue pork and apple cabbage tray bake. Ah, so easy. And let's just get in here and make sure that I've done a good job for you. Even though that pork's been cooked a really short amount of time, relatively, because usually you like slow cook roast pork or pork belly, but that is super tender. And that flavor, like you get the sweet apple, you get that lovely glaze, you get a big hit of chili from the slices at the end. That is a really good weeknight dinner. Loving that. You know how you get those like Russian roulette chilies? Like the hottest one in the bag? Whoa, that's spicy. But anyway, this pork is really good. Yum. Rich, sticky, unctuously tender pork belly. Oh, this is like every Asian kid's comfort food. And I'm going to show you how I make mine at home. Let's make soy braised pork belly and egg. For the marinade, you need to start off with some coriander root. That is this part of the coriander stem. Pop that into your mortar, add garlic and whole white peppercorns, and then pound that to a really nice smooth paste. Then you can add in some shallots and some palm sugar. The palm sugar usually comes in quite firm little blocks, so you need to kind of chop it up or shave it with your knife. That's why I like to pound it into the mixture here. It just makes it easier to dissolve. The pork itself needs to be cut into large chunks. It will kind of shrink down as it slowly braises, so you want to start off larger than you think, around about 2-inch cubes. Place your pork into a bowl, add in your paste, and now all the seasonings. So I have some dark soy sauce. This is going to give us a lovely mahogany caramel kind of color. And then I want regular soy sauce and fish sauce here too. Give all of that a really good mix and allow the pork to marinate if you can. Like 2 hours or overnight is great. But you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and use this one as it is, and it'll still be really great. So I'm going to cook the pork now, but you kind of need to be a little bit careful here because we have a lot of sugary and soy sauce kind of ingredients here, and I don't want any burning to happen. So kind of get your pan heating up, but not too hot, just like a medium heat. Add the pork in, and it should just be like kind of gently steaming at this point. I don't want any like harsh searing because I don't want any burnt flavors. Keep tossing and mixing that pork through as it heats up for around about 4 or 5 minutes, or until you're just starting to see the pork color a little. Now I'm going to add in the spices. So I kind of want the flavor profile of Chinese 5-spice, but I'm going to use some of the whole spices here. So I've got cinnamon stick, some cloves, some star anise, and now I'm going to go in here with some shiitake mushrooms. So I actually soaked these in some hot water till they were nice and soft, remove the stems, cut them in half, so the mushrooms go in, and then also I can use the soaking liquid as my braising sauce. So pour that into the pot, give all of that a really good mix, and then I'm going to cover that with a round of baking paper. I've just cut a little slit here in the middle so some of that steam can escape as the pork cooks, and then pop a lid on, turn the heat to low, and let it simmer for about 2 hours. So I did come back to check on the pork a couple of times to make sure it wasn't burning on the bottom, but it's come along beautifully, and oh my goodness, it smells so good. Let's open this up and have a look. The pork is deeply, deeply tender. That sauce has evaporated down into a really lovely, sticky kind of caramel. Put the eggs in. These are 5-minute 30 eggs. Gently toss those eggs through the sauce and then let them simmer for 15 minutes with the lid on so they just take up a little bit more color and flavor there. Now we're almost there, so I'm going to stir through a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. This really adds such a great, fresh, sort of spicy hit at the end here. I like to see just how tender the pork is. Well, to be clear, I like to show you guys just how tender the pork is. So if you have a look here, I mean, that pork is literally glistening. I mean, okay, like it just falls apart just with a spoon, and it's just like melting apart. Ah, so good. All right, I'm going to get this into my serving bowl. Some eggs. Few that are just cut in half, a little bit of coriander, and there you go, my friends. Soy braised pork belly and egg. And then when you're eating Thai food, it's really about the food seasoning the rice, if you like. So this is a really lovely, intense, sweet soy sauce flavor. The pork is intense, so you only need a little bit, and you sort of add it to your rice, and then it flavors the rice basically. Oh my God, so good. It's got this really lovely, delicate spice flavor, so I can taste the star anise and the cinnamon. The sauce is salty but not too intense, and just a slight amount of sweetness, and the pork is just to die for.